Hey guys, welcome back to the Hot Trades podcast with Rob and Blaise. We've gone through a little progression in this whole podcast storytelling, I don't know, journey, whatever you call it. We've talked about market psychology. We've talked about keeping it simple in the market. We've talked about is the stock market rigged and against, retail investors. And the next logical progression in this whole storyline seems like, talking about technical analysis, talking about tools we Rob and I use and everybody else uses to see if they actually do work. Right. So again, in this little episode of the podcast, we will be talking about technical analysis and tools to see if they actually do work. So welcome. Episode four, Rob. Episode four. Are you ready for this?
Right.
Anyways, how's your weekend?
Good. Busy weekend, but good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was good. So
that's good.
getting ready for that crazy week ahead. Hopefully the markets will
Yeah.
rebound a bit. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. That whole we kind of talked about this weekend, like in like market cycles and how September is usually a rubbish month, and then we go into October and it seems to somehow turn around. So that's good. Hopefully we can move away from all the redness in the market
Right.
already. So technical analysis. I get questions like these like this all the time on stream. Like I don't think what are these tools you're using. Like technical analysis doesn't work. And honestly, like I am from my I mean, we're going to talk about all of this, but like from my point of view, and I think like Rob agrees with this, there is not a way I think we can like Rob and I can trade without having these tools, without having technical analysis. But some people like really, really believe like these tools are like just completely useless in a sense, right? So, and I don't know how people trade without having like tools to use, right? So, and Rob, from your experience, like what do you think about technical analysis in general? Like, do they work for you?
So I think that's the key for us to even if you're not studying technical analysis when you're first getting into trading, then you're just betting. You're just,
Mhm.
you're just gambling because you're going in blind. You're going in based on news or because somebody said, "Hey, the market I think is going up," or stuff like that. Technical analysis is what we have as retail traders above all things to know what the going back to like what we learned, what we taught about the market makers. It's how we know what the market makers are doing in the market, right? Like it's the footprint that they're leaving, and the indicators will help us do that. And it's hard. It's hard to hear that because as you all know, we created that indicator, and hearing people sometimes, oh, well, you don't need indicators and all that, which in a way, like I get it. You could just draw a line or something, which is kind of like like an indicator. You're just drawing your own line or your own areas of resistance and all that stuff. But it's definitely, we'll get into that more, I guess. But to answer your question, I think especially with technicals, and we've proven it time and time and again, on the lives when you're showing something, and let's say the market is going into this demand zone, and then it just literally just bounces right there at that demand zone the
Mhm.
first time it touches the demand zone. So you'll see that it'll create it, then it just goes down, taps it, and goes. I mean, what more can how much more do you want? You know what I mean? Like, and that proves that technicals work, and that's what we're going to show, that the indicators is not magic. It's just basically doing something that we would probably do manually, but it's doing it for us. You see, so
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
but technical is like, without technicals, we have nothing. We're just guessing. We're just
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah. For some reason, I cannot pull up your screen, Rob. It shows me a little dark screen. Yeah, for some reason it's yeah.
You want me to remove and add it again, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Let's try that. Um, the next question we can kind of talk about, before we get into examples is, what you also need to, like what is technical analysis is something that we will kind of talk about, and then we can get to a few examples. And And for the most part, like all technical analysis is, Rob uses this example all the time, which, which I love, right? It's, that expression of like, okay, I can see it now. That expression of like looking back, like, look left is what he says all the time, right? And that's what technical analysis is, right? You're trying to look at the past to predict the future, right? You're looking at a specific chart and saying, okay, like what has this done in the past? And can I use that past information for future projections, right? That's a little part of it. And a whole bunch of it, comes with volume and momentum and a whole bunch of other fancy things, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, Rob, in like from your like knowledge, what is technical analysis to you?
So technical analysis to me is basically that, like, it's understanding what the market is doing.
Mhm,
um and like you said, there's so many. So this is where all these tools come from, technical analysis. Like all these tools like volume oscillators, momentum oscillators, like RSI, stochastic, um, supply and demand, and all these things that you find are MACD, and the MACD. All these things are based off of technicals, off of what we're looking for, right? So if we're just focused on volume, we're focusing only on volume and breakouts. So we're looking at the volume, and we want to see if at a certain level it's going to break out, right? So you can with an indicator that's created for that, that's just calculating the volume that's coming in, you're going to be able to do it, you see. So basically
mhm,
indicators are just something that is going to strengthen the analysis that you're doing, right?
mhm,
So it's
mhm,
like when we talk about this on the Discord, I always tell people the indicator. So okay, let's get this straight. Let's agree on one thing. Indicators definitely are lagging, definitely are after the fact most of the time, but I've seen a lot of people say that, and they use that as an excuse, right? But you're looking at a naked chart right now. We're looking at a naked chart right now. Fine. Like, yes, I know that up here is a supply zone or a resistance zone right here, right? Because that's where it tapped and it came back down. If I keep looking left, maybe that's my highest high, right? That's the higher high before it pivoted down, and this is my pivot low, right? But you see what I'm talking out of experience. I know a person that's not, you know, that doesn't know technical analysis or doesn't know market structure is not even going to know that.
mhm.
I mean, so those things help, right? So I what I have to do, I have to draw a line, I have to come here, draw this line, then I have to come here again, draw this line here. Now I have two targets. Now I know that this price is gonna most likely move in between, right? And if it comes here, most likely I have to see if it's ever gonna probably go back down and test this. So I'm watching all these things, right?
Yeah.
And if you notice, I'm doing this, and this is what happened to me, like in the past when I first started trading through Ninja Trader. I opened up the chart and I started opening up all these indicators, right? Like RSI, because I was focused on momentum, right? Because in the futures market, you're working with margin, right? You're so with a margin account, so you're kind of like, you just want to get those smaller moves because you can't deal with the drawdown, right? So it's kind of like just a small enough move to make what I want to make, and I'm out, in and out. So I have to find the momentum. When is it coming, right? And
Mhm,
and these indicators allow you to see what was it doing last, right? So when you're looking at an RSI, and the RSI is at 30, let's say we know that the 30 is like what they call an oversold level or near oversold, and then your 70 is more or less the standard for pretty much overbought. So when the price is hitting 30, almost all the time, when it hits to 30, it's almost overextended. That it can
yep.
go lower, definitely. That it could stay at 30 for a bit or a little lower because it's going to continue to drop, definitely. But
Mhm,
you know that it's a pretty much overextended, and now you have something to work with.
yep.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that's what you want. You want something to work with, right? You want a tool that's gonna, you're not gonna have to do all these things. Now, yes, you might say, Robert, well, you create an indicator. Of course, you're gonna defend it, right? But the truth is that the reason why we did this because we believe in it, and it just makes it much easier. I want people to learn market structure, um, which comes together with a price action,
Mhm,
understand. And then once you understand that, then you're going to know then indicators are going to become just a tool. It's not a it's not going to be something like, and this is what happens, right? People turn on indicators because it says it has a pretty name, and it says buy and it
Mhm.
says sell. And when they hit buy, they're not trading. You're not trading. You're just going off of a signal. That the same thing as if you get in a Discord,
Yep.
you know what I mean? And a Discord is just telling you buy here and sell there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not, you're
Yep.
not trading. You know what I mean? It's like, if you really want, if you're coming to hot trades, let's just say that. I'm gonna keep it real today. If you're coming to hot trades, you're coming to learn. You're
Yep.
not coming to get Blaise telling you buy this, buy that, or come now or whatever. He mostly, not mostly, every time someone asks Blaise on the live, um, what do you think about this, or the first thing he says, what's your position in the stock? What's your position? Did you put a stop? Where was it? He asks all that. Why? Because he's not just going to tell you what to do, right? He wants to understand a bit, so you can be able to learn for yourself, right? So you know
Exactly.
why did you do that? Most of the time they don't even know, and that's where it comes into you explaining. Well, if you didn't, if you did this and you don't know when you're going to get out, then you didn't have a plan. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And so it's,
Yep.
it goes hand in hand, right? So getting back to that, um, I lost my lost what, but
um,
what I want to get at is the technical indicators are just tools to help a
mhm.
trader find those things they're looking for quicker, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I'll fight. I'm telling you, you want me to debate? If somebody sees this YouTube and they want to debate me that doesn't believe in indicators, let's do it. Let's do
Yep.
it, because I'm not going to come to you telling you, yeah, the indicator is magic and it's to do this. No, the indicator is only to give you tools, to give you tools to project things that you're looking for. If I'm looking for, look at this. Look at this. I did this on purpose. I put this naked chart, and right, and this is something that newer traders, when they come to hot trades and they use the indicator, they go, "Oh my goodness!" It's like, because the chart is speaking to them, and that's what I was aiming for, because that's what I want for me. I don't
Yep.
want the chart to tell me when to buy, when to not buy. I want the chart to tell me the price is doing this. There is momentum or there isn't momentum. There's a possible reversal here. It just broke this resistance. It just went into a supply zone. It just, you see, it's telling me. It's like having a professional trader in your ear telling you this, that, this is what
Mhm.
it's doing. You know what I mean? And then once I know what it's doing, then I make the decision, right, to get in or to
Exactly.
get out. That's why I
Exactly.
never put buy or sell in the indicator, and I
Yep.
never will. And
Yep.
everybody's always, I did at one time, I had in the settings buy sell, I think it was, but it would say
Yeah.
bear and bullish, and then I took it out because I don't want that. I want them to, because most of the time it could even say buy, and you know that when the market is sideways, it's choppy to tell you buy sell, buy sell. Why?
Yep.
Because the indicator is just doing what it's supposed to do. It's not emotional. It's not. It's just focusing on the calculations, the math that is in the background, right?
Mhm.
So just with that being said, I'm looking at this. This is my pivot, my higher high. This is my pivot low, right, or my the reversal that I'm seeing here. When I look back, right, it came from here and it went up. It made it kind of like consolidated a bit, then it went a little higher, but then it broke down. Here
Mhm.
it broke structure, right? You see this? But you see what I'm doing? I'm just doing this all in my, so people like, look, dude, if you don't wanna put on an indicator and you wanna do all this in your head, that's fine. You can do it. Great.
Yep.
That doesn't make you a better trader than me because I'm using an indicator or not. You know what I mean? It just
Mhm.
makes it easier for me. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I'm a technologist, so I love technology and I'm gonna use it for to help me. I'm gonna work smarter, not harder. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
you see this? It taps here, goes, breaks. Now I make this low, right? But so now I'm looking, what is price gonna do again? Is it gonna come back up here? Is it gonna come back down here? But look how easy when I do this. Boop. Now I have everything. It just
Yep.
showed me that it's having a little trend. Look at that. I didn't even think about that. It's
Yep.
creating a shorter term trend. It's creating a shorter term trend. It's showing me here a very dark green because it has various times it came in, and took off. If you notice here, we had a lot of double bottoms, meaning that it kept tapping into the same area and
Yep.
then it took off. That's why it's so strong, that green, as they're overlapping, right? So you
Yep.
see, I don't have to now think much. I just have to focus on what am I going to do now. What I always say: if this, then that. If not, then what?
Mhm.
Right? Okay, now I know. I added this new liquidity grab. It came in. It grabbed. You see why did I add the liquidity grab? Because most of the time, look what it does. Look at that little wick here. It wicks down, comes up. That's what it's doing. It's grabbing liquidity to take off.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? So it
Mhm.
grabbed, it's grabbing, it's taking off. It did it again a bit here, and is now now it's trending up, and it created a little trend line for me. Where is it going, Blaze? Now I don't even have to be measuring much. Where is it going? Like you say, the red, right there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And what am I going to do with the red? I'm going to be thinking of selling, most likely. If it's a stock, I'm going to be thinking of selling. I'm going to see what it does if it consolidates to go higher. You see what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
have now a broader plan. Oh, that the indicator it told me after the fact. Of course it did. You're not. Nobody can tell the future. You know what I mean? Nobody
Yep.
can tell the future, but I can do. What I can do is I can deduce, right? I can go here to my and by no means I'm trying to sell the indicator, but if you want to just come join Hot Trades. But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is, if you come here, what is it telling me? It's telling me things. It's talking to me. So that's what I want. I don't want. I'm not. I don't want it. It's not telling me buy. Do this, do that. It's just telling me what I need to know. I need
Mhm.
to know price is bullish. It is. This is my cumulative delta. It's telling me that there's a lot more buyers than sellers. And I put this darker green, meaning that this is a spike in delta. The market just kind of opened on Sunday, so that makes sense. It's kind of like,
Mhm.
the
Exactly.
all those orders are coming in. So we have a
Mhm.
lot more orders. My MACD is strong. That's the same thing if I would have had the MACD posted. I know that it's strong. It's over the signal line. The
Mhm.
RSI is above 50. You see? So what is it telling me? There's momentum in the market. There's momentum right now. Like in the
Mhm.
futures market, there's a bit momentum. It's slow, but there's momentum. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? And
Yep.
then, and it's telling me there's an uptrend. So that means that now how many you can trade the way you want. You can get in here because you have a longer time. You have a longer way of trading, right? Your trading is your. Sorry, let me click here to take this out. So there, and it goes to show you how different it can be, right? So if I'm up the way I trade, I'm waiting for a retracement. But since I know it's still bullish, I'm waiting for a retracement so then it can go up. I'm not gonna buy at the top. So I'm waiting for a bit of a retracement to that nine, like you teach, or
Yep.
into here, and then see if it takes off again. And it might most likely will because there's momentum. There's another trader can say no. My target is 4,400. So I'm getting in here because I'm getting in here because my my ratio went to, and I'm gonna put my stop loss here because my ratio went my ratio is like 3 to 4 to 1. I put
Yep.
my type stop loss, but this is my target all the way up here. You see what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
So the same indicator, the same way of thing, you have different ways of trading it. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
that proves right there to me, that proves that it's not about, well, because I think that when people talk, the common misconception when these guys talk about indicators is that and maybe it's because, yeah, you have a lot of people prostituting it too. They're talking about, these indicators work wonders. They're going to be able to tell the future and do all these other things. Even though I saw someone put on a YouTube saying that you can't forecast with
Mhm.
indicators, and I think you can. Maybe we can leave that for another time. But
Yes.
if you know market structure, and you know where your levels, where your pivot low is, your higher high is, where your supply and demand levels, and market structure, how the market works. You know that price is gonna gravitate to a certain point at some moment. So you could either
Exactly.
forecast like I do on Discord. You could forecast the bullish or the bearish. If it breaks this is the new target.
Yep.
If it go below this is the new target. Why? The indicator is not is just the indicator is just showing me the levels, but then the knowledge of market structure and price action, I put it into play.
Exactly.
You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's where I think that indicators come in. It's not to really, it's not, it's not to tell the future, even though it isn't. You could do it too. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's why I said I would debate anybody, because you see these I know a couple. I know a mark. I know a trader that he used to work for Morgan Stanley. He was a market maker before. He has his own asset management company, and he does spreads and all these things. And I've seen his charts like from far. Obviously, I'm not trying to, but from the times I've helped him and I've done stuff in his office, I've seen he has the 20, the 50, the 100, the 200, the 100. He has them all, spread out, and he's. I guess I. The only thing I could deduce from it is that he has certain levels where he knows, he's gonna, if he's doing spreads, most likely he's just like finding where the market is not going to go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Maybe or something. So
Yeah.
but he has it, and these guys use a lot of the the moving averages. You know what I mean? They use resistance levels and they use all that stuff. So if you ask me,
That's a see. That's an interesting point, because then maybe the next question is like, like technical analysis, yes, but like why in from like from your experience and like market makers, we obviously market makers use we use technical analysis. Market makers use technical analysis. These little algos use technical analysis. Like there's not a market maker that's sitting there on the computer for 6 hours a day, right,
not at
going
all.
in and out, in and out, in and out. So they have these algorithms based on like specific systems. Like why does it like why do they do that? Like why does technical analysis work from Rob?
That's a
I mean,
great question. That's
yeah,
a great question because the market is always doing the same thing.
yeah.
It's finding patterns. You're finding patterns. You're finding, once, like, let me go back to the chart. Sorry.
Hmm. And maybe what we can do as well is yeah, maybe zoom out to a bigger time frame,
That's what I
and
just did. Yeah.
then and
Perfect.
then yeah, and then maybe even like strip it all the way back and like turn the indicator off for a second, and then we can go back to like just
Perfect.
just patterns and see if we can catch some of these things, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
So here, I mean, I drew this. I'm gonna leave it there because I need that.
yeah,
This is my
exactly.
level of liquidity that I'm watching. But
Yeah,
anyways, but if you notice, it trended up. What can we see there? It trended up, went sideways, right? Kind of like double tops here, and
yeah,
then it just comes down and it starts creating what, a higher low, a lower high,
yeah,
lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. So what is the market doing? It's coming down.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Trending, yeah,
So
yeah,
that, and every time, so once you learn market structure, like these patterns, you realize it. Like a double top. There's statistics. I don't, and that's actually something I was looking for at Blaze. I was looking for statistics. I want to find it so we could
hmm,
probably do a podcast just on statistics because it would be amazing.
yeah. I
Like,
think
what's the probability of price, at a double top, you know, um,
breaking out or
breaking
like
down,
yeah,
breaking out. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Or a double bottom or a triple bottom. You like, or stuff like that. Every time it breaks structure, will it
yeah.
continue now down or will it continue up? There's a lot of statistics on that. There's probabilities on that, and I'm dying to find that, like, because I've seen people like, but I don't know if there's one place where you can find it. But I think that would be great to have.
I
It would
think
be
so.
a great tool to have because it honestly is. This is a, obviously we don't know what's going to happen here, but because of the patterns, because of what the market is always doing, and what did we say back when we were talking? I forgot. We had mentioned we are all taught to trade the same way.
Yeah,
So since we're all taught to trade the same way, we know that a double bottom, most of us are going to go short. We're going
exactly.
to sell up there.
Go
You know
long
what I
in a
mean?
top, it's up. Yeah,
And a
yeah,
double top. We're at a double bottom. It came here. It's coming back down. Now we're watching. Once we see these bars coming back down, we're already watching this. You're
yeah,
watching it in the live. I know you're watching this section.
yeah.
This is where you start doing this.
Or curling, Rob. We're
You
finding
know
the bottom. See, that's my
exactly.
technical analysis.
So it's like, you know exactly. So we're looking for this, and then we're looking for the famous Blaise curl, the curl, to
Hmm.
see if it continues. But it's always doing the same thing. Here it comes down. It comes. The market doesn't always go up. So what is it
Hmm.
going to do? It's going to retrace. It's going to continue higher. Retrace. Continue higher. You see what I'm saying?
And that's a really interesting point, because if you put a line at the top, so for example, pull like just a horizontal line at the top and at the bottom,
Here.
and then, yeah, and then you can go from, you can go from as far, or just do so do one of the, yeah, there you go, yeah, perfect, yeah, just like that, and then another line at the bottom of the of the thing there, right? So, and for the most part, like, in a simple, I like the dollar sign. I don't know why you put the dollar sign there, but
Because this was an area of liquidity before and it broke it.
okay, okay, okay,
Now it's
sounds.
done here. I should bring it down here.
Oh yeah, the money area, and so
Look what
like,
it did though. Look what it did there. Look at the wick.
exactly, exactly,
That's what it did.
right,
It
exactly.
grabbed those orders, it grabbed the liquidity, and it took off again. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly, exactly. And now it's failing at the previous level. And this is
Ah,
this is
right.
this is right. And this is what we're trying to get to. Like in like in a really simple way. Like we've explained, like technical analysis is basically like, like Rob said, like the study of the like we've all been taught to trade together, right? Technical analysis in a sense is, you're looking at the past to try to predict the future, right? And just by looking at this example, there's a reason why, with or without like fancy indicators or without anything else, you can look at this and say, why does the stock keep bouncing up the same level, right? Why do we keep going up and failing at the same area, right? So, and that's really what you're trying to get to, right? The reason we say use technical analysis, or the reason it's reliable, is because we see these things happening over and over and over and over
Right.
again, right?
Look at
So,
this example. I turned on the spy. Look
mhm,
at the head and shoulders, right?
yep,
And
mhm,
when you're taught about head and shoulders, you're taught about a measured move, right?
mhm,
So you measure it here. You measure this, right? Most likely to the neckline, or from this price here, actually, like this, to the neckline, right? You measure it. You bring it to the neckline at the bottom of the neckline, and look what it does. It takes it right to that line that I just put right now, Blaze,
yep,
which was the last time that price touched here. Look at that. So why? Because the market does always the same thing. You see, right now, this head and shoulder is still in play. It came down in the spy, came back up, tapped, and now we get that red candle now. It's a little, well, it's still red, but it looks a little more bullish. But we have to see what happens tomorrow. If it
futures
continues
are
high, or
divided.
if it'll continue low again. You see, if it makes a continuation down. You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying? So
exactly.
it's like you were saying. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted, but I
Oh,
just
no,
wanted. But it's
yeah,
so true. The reason why this exists is because it always happens.
exactly.
And why does it always happen? Because the market is algorithmic. You see, this actually is so true. What you said. This is the episode that bring everything together.
Yeah,
It brings a bit everything together because
yeah,
technical analysis is is part of the is because is why the price act is measuring the price action and finding those patterns that the algorithm is doing of the
yep,
market makers, because
exactly,
it's always looking, for
exactly.
liquidity to
Yep.
provide liquidity.
Exactly. And to me, like, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, how we've talked about psychology, and we've talked about keeping it simple, and we've talked about, like, is the market rigged? From my experience, and I think Rob, agrees with this. Like he said, like technical analysis brings all this together in the sense that, like it like, when you struggle with like emotional, like psychology, right? It's because you're either, like, again, you're missing something in the market, right? You're missing something from a technical point of view, like you're just not connecting the dots somewhere, because again, you have the market makers using technicals, you have the big money using technicals, right? We
And
mentioned,
software.
right? And like we mentioned on the last episode, something along the lines of like, um like there's not a computer that's sitting there and waiting for you to do something and then they will go against you. That's
Right.
not happening in the market, right? So, we've talked about how people will question, like, is the market rigged? Well, no, the market is not rigged, right? So we've explained how liquidity works, in the sense that, I've lost my train of thought in what I wanted to use. I had a really a cool way to bring this together. But you know what I mean? Like again, so technical analysis, like it's almost like the like it's emotionless, right?
Mhm.
It's all based on like something that's happening, something that's happened to predict something that's about to happen, right? And that's what you want, right? You want to find ways to like eliminate, like your expectations of the market. You want to find ways to eliminate like your emotions from the market and see if you can bring that together with like a strategy, right? That's
Right.
all that really matters, right?
Yeah,
um
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you before.
no, no,
The
no.
um the um the technical analysis is what allows you to create your strategy, right?
Yep.
So by so like you said, you're trying to predict. They'll say, oh, you can't predict the market. Well, in a way you can, because it's either going to do two things: it's going to go up or it's going to go down, right? One of the two, or maybe just go sideways. So we can predict that. We can say, okay, which is my levels, right? Like here, is it going to come back to the neckline? If it breaks this neckline, I'm pretty positive that the price is going to continue higher, gravitate now to the next area of liquidity above, right?
Hmm.
But if
Hmm.
it rejects and breaks this here structure here, and let's say it does this, and this is an area of structure, this thing comes down, this thing goes like this, comes like this, right here, and then it breaks it, it's gonna most likely come back here and then come right back down. See what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So we
Exactly.
can, but why is not, I'm not making that up. It's because that's what the market does. You know what I mean? And it's proven time and time and again that when you break structure, the market's gonna try to come back up, retest that structure, and then come right back down,
Yep.
to the next area until there's a change in character where it'll come back up, then come back,
Yep.
break, make a higher high. Now you made the new higher high. Now you change character to the upside now. Now everything
Exactly.
changes. Now we switch our strategy again, and we
Yep.
have our new target.
Exactly. Can you go back to that last chart, Rob? Like the clean version of the last one you had, yeah, with the lines, and then maybe go back to, and like so what like what Rob is explaining there is you kind of notice how like if you go a little bit more to the left hand side. Right. So the question you have to ask yourself is like, why do we keep bouncing off the bottom at the bottom of the yellow line there? Right. And that line goes all the way across to the left hand side. Right. This is something that you don't get to see without technical analysis. Like Rob can go all the way to the left hand side. Right. That's a 4 hour chart. So this goes quite
That's
a
where it
ways.
started. Yep.
Exactly. Right. So the question you have to ask yourself with technical analysis, and the reason we use technical analysis is why does that stock over like multiple 4 hour candles, why do we keep bouncing off that same level? Right. And why is it that when we rally all the way to the top, why do we fail at that orange line at the top? Right. And so that's what you're trying to look at in terms of technical analysis and say, you know what, like I like this area. This potentially becomes an entry level, right? Or I'm going to sell at this level because that looks like we're struggling at that level, right? So again, you're looking left to kind of predict the future, right? And like
Right.
Rob explained on that last example, when that trend breaks, right? If you're holding a stock and you notice that it broke below that yellow line right there, you know exactly what's going to happen, right? Something not good is going to happen, and maybe you need to make decisions now, right? You know,
Right.
and yeah, so
Right. No, no, definitely. That's why I marked this area of liquidity here, because this is a 4 hour chart. So it was a while
yeah,
back. This was in June 7th that
exactly,
it bounced, it came right back in and really took off. So it really left imbalance in the market here.
yeah,
So what is knowing, you see, it's like you said, this is putting everything together.
yeah,
It's like what we talked before. And there's something coming soon. We're gonna create a little we're gonna teach people on market structure, so they know that
yes,
once this is created, this here, all these green candles, no red candles, no retesting, only this one. And then if you notice, it retested near the same place. That means this is all imbalanced. That means that these are orders. There was orders left there. You know what I mean?
hmm,
So now the market, what is it going to do at some point when it breaks this area? It's going to come back to retest this. And what did it do? Look at
exactly.
look at that move from here exactly to here. Look what it did, right here to here. Look at that, right here to here, right to that area of liquidity.
Mhm.
Took back up, and like you said, it rejected. It
Yep.
rejected, came back down. Now it's coming back. Now we have to see if this maybe continues sideways, comes grab more and then take off again, or what's going to happen in the market. All depends, because that's another thing. The market is reacting also based on yes news, because when they say they're pricing in, they're pricing in something, is because basically they're selling. They're
Mhm.
selling. They're taking money out of the market. They're moving it to bonds. They're moving it to something else. So when they take money out of equities, is risk. That means it's risk off, right? They don't want to risk too much, so they risk off. The market is at risk off. They start selling. So now the algorithm is looking now for lower prices to find buyers, because now he knows that they're selling. So now the algorithm is finding buyers. Okay, at what point are people going to come in and start buying again? Most of the time, what is it going to do, Blaze? Where did I find it before? Right here.
Exactly.
Look
Exactly.
left.
Look
So
left.
for us, is look left. For the algorithm is like, where did I find it before? It already knows. So it's going to start gravitating down. Now, if we know that up here, and we saw rejected, and we saw rejected, and we saw this big move, now we know our targets are down here. Now, if I'm short, and I'm maybe a day trader, or a long term trader, and I got it in around here, I'm still in the play. I'm still in this trade,
Yep.
because I'm just riding the wave down. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Now we know that once it breaks this level here, now we know that we might most likely gravitate back up.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So technical analysis is important. It works. It's needed. It's needed to trade, and the indicators are just to help you make the decision in the trade. It's not magic. It's not. And I think, like I said, I created an indicator, and I only created it, and I tell people all the time when we train people on the indicator, and we do new updates and stuff. It's all based on what we need,
Mhm.
what we're looking for. Sometimes somebody might tell me, Robert, I usually look at this, and I'm like, holy cow, that's such a good, so then I use Confluence, right? So now I can look at it. Now I could look at my RSI. Now I could look at the RSI. I could look at the MACD. I could look at volume. I look at it if I'm in and all these things come together. And now I feel more, the probability starts feeling higher, and I feel more less emotional on taking the trade.
Mhm.
So that's all it is. It's not magic. It's not something that is doing that one thing is going to do it better than the other. It's how you make it work. How you put it together. So I'm
Yep.
saying,
Yep.
because our indicator, it has RSI, it has MACD, it has all these things that others have, but it's how we put it together and how you use it. And I tell people, you don't have to use it all.
Yep.
Turn off everything if you want, and just leave the algo bar,
Yep.
and you just work on momentum, and you can
Mhm.
have your nice little naked chart, you know, and just focus on when it's green, the momentum. You have your RSI and you have your MACD. You feel good. You get in, and you're at a point where it's curling. You get in the thing. That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
You could turn off the algo bar, and you could just
Exactly.
leave on your bearish signals and your bullish signals, and you're good.
Exactly.
You can leave the trend line, and you go off of the trend. You go off
Mhm.
of the trend. I have a trader in futures that she sometimes looks at the trend, and she'll take the short or the long off the trends. And someone else, a newer a person that he likes to trade off the trend line. There's trend line liquidity too. You see, but those are things that you have to learn. Because the line is drawn, it's not. That doesn't mean that people think because the line is there, it's like magic. What, the price is doing it because I'm putting the line there? No, it's because it's creating something based on math, right, and statistics, and that's why people know already. They all trade the same, so now
Yep.
they all saw the trend, so they're putting their buy orders there. So what are they doing? They're creating liquidity, and what is the algorithm doing? Providing it.
Yep. Exactly.
So we're putting it all together. I think this episode was great because we're
Yeah.
put, we're putting it all together. Like it
Yes.
kind of like turned out better than we thought, because to be honest, we to the viewers, we just wanted to show people, hey, technicals is important, it's needed, and
Mhm.
that's why we teach it so much. And indicators are there to help, and don't get confused, especially for newer traders. But then this, it puts it all together with what we taught before. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think it's like I said, it's not magic. I tell people all the time, just it's just to help you make better decisions and quicker.
Yep.
because sometimes you're thinking about, and I've seen when if I turn on here an RSI, a MACD, all this will fill up like up to here.
Yep.
If I try to fill up to
Exactly.
here, then I just have this for my chart. You know what I mean? And that's another thing. Like that's a lot. Like I'd rather have something that's just more, and that's why we created what we created.
Yep.
But you see, with this now, everything is there for me. Oh, I have targets now too. Look, I have targets. These are
Hmm.
all targets. These are all targets. Why? Because this was areas. These are all supply demand zones that were created. If you look left, boom, it was created there. This one was created here. This one was created here. So what is price going to do? It's going to gravitate there. If it breaks this, now we're targeting here. This breaks, we're targeting here. This breaks, we're targeting here. We've done that on the futures channel. We've
Yep.
done that, Blaze. We've gone from demand zone breaking, those days that is trending and it's just eating up all the liquidity down, the buy side liquidity, boom, 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 until we find them where now we're not gonna know where it's gonna reverse
Exactly.
because it's the same thing. The algorithm is just looking for now. Buyers came in here more, and it took it up. Now all these were taken out. Now we're just looking for the new area of a supply zone. Now we're you see. So it's kind of like it's just to make it easier for you. So a person that complains about indicators, they look at all those green lines or all these. Well, they're there for a reason. That means that there's a lot of support here. You know what I mean? That means there's a lot of support here. And if it starts breaking this down, then you know that the sellers are in control. You know
Hmm.
that the bears are in control and the market's going lower because it's eating up all these. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So and these were all just higher highs that it was making at some point. If you look left, you see it was just higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I like that.
mean,
I like that. If you got to the we can talk if you've got to the end of this of the end of the podcast, kind of to the end, the later
yeah,
parts. Let us know like what your favorite indicator is, right? I think we know what the answer is gonna be. I think you know what the answer for Rob and I is gonna be. But let us know, or let us know what your first indicator was in the comment section. Alrighty. So what we want you to understand, with all this indicator talk is, I mean, you can. The reason we want you to use indicators, the reason we think it works, right, is because again, right, it's kind of the study of the past, right? You want to use these tools and see if you can predict the future, right? I see people like trade without technicals all the time, and I think it's impressive if you can do it without
it is.
indicators.
No, I mean it is. It is. If you know price action, if you know market structure, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it, but don't tell me they're not gonna draw a damn line.
Oh yeah,
They-
exactly.
because I'm gonna draw lines because I want to see where the last low was, and I'm gonna
Exactly.
draw a line across to make sure. Because then I don't know. I want to know the price. Where it last. So they're gonna
Exactly.
draw something. You know what I mean? They're gonna draw lines. They're gonna draw. So it's
Yeah.
just. But definitely, yeah. If you and I'm not saying you can't trade without it. I think that a lot of people that trade without it are people that trade more also just quick scalp like momentum. They get in and they get out.
Hmm.
They see the curl, they see an area where they see a double bottom and they get in and they get out. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, if you want to have those targets higher up and you want to, like I want to be able to teach in the future is
Hmm.
multi-dimensional. It's called
Hmm.
multi-dimensional like multi-directional like technical analysis because
Yeah.
you're looking at a higher time frame
Hmm.
to find those areas that we were just seeing. But then all those areas that we were just seeing, right, the way we put the lines, that's a
Hmm.
4 hour chart. But
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in the 15
Exactly.
and the 30 minute, right? So we
Yeah.
want to find those areas because we know that our longer bias will be, either that liquidity down. So now we're just gonna find our targets on the way down. You see,
Mhm.
or if you're just a swing trader or you're just some trading like a day trader, then you could just leave the trade, and target that liquidity below or above.
Yeah, exactly. You know what scares me though, Rob? Like people that trade without technical analysis, yes, like that's cool. But what scares me is the people that like are very new to this and trade without technicals.
right?
I think that's so scary. So very important technical analysis,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
You-
and I think that if you're going to use an indicator, you should know first the technicals because, like I said, it should help you.
yeah,
Now, not all indicators do that, right? That's why I think that ours is good because it at least for newer traders, I hear it all the time, all the new traders. Oh my god, it makes it look so much better for me because I at least know I could see it. Like I could see an area. You see, it's not telling me, oh wow, it's magic. Every time it says bullish, I make $1,000. It's always green. No, they're telling me I can read the chart a little better, and then when I'm learning through Blaise and all that stuff, I could see it better. It's creating it for me. You see what I'm
mhm,
saying? And I
mhm.
think that's what an indicator should also do. It should just make it easier for you to read those levels or those areas that you're looking for.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Like Rob was saying earlier, like you can use indicators. Like there's so much stuff you could use in the market. Like the people that use RSI, right, and all they do is use the RSI. The people that only use the MACD, right. So the people that only use like divergence levels, right, and things like that.
Bollinger Bands.
Exactly, right. So and that's okay. Like but again, that's still technical analysis in a sense, right.
It
So
is.
what you're trying to do is like that's technical analysis to the simplest level, right? But then as you progress, which is the goal, right, you're trying to, when it comes to technical analysis, you're trying to combine like a whole bunch of these things together, right, to tell you a specific story. If I have the MACD telling me one story and the RSI is telling me the same story and this is telling me the same story, that's what you want, right? And
Confluence.
exactly, and that's where the indicator comes in, right? So again, you can go from like really really simple, like using the RSI or using the MACD, to all the way to the algo, which is at top tier, at the top of the mountain, right? And that will bring everything together for you, right? So another thing you really have to understand is like depending on the time frame, right, depending on like what type of trader you are, whether you're scalping momentum, right, you're using different things. If you're like a Tesla investor and you're holding long term, you're using different things,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So that's kind of where you have to like play around and explore, and really figure out who you are in the market, whether you're a
Hmm.
scalper, blah blah blah, right? And then see if you can find tools around that will help you like find that strategy, right? So and yeah, which is almost like where we come in. But anyways, in terms of like education and whatnot, right? So
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like
right.
I said, and by no means we're not trying to tell people to use or indicators or not to use anything. We're just providing our opinion on what we believe in, right? That and how it makes it much easier for us to to trade and to see things
Mhm,
and but like I said, it's you have to learn technicals. You have to learn market structure so you understand what the market is doing.
mhm.
Then after that, everything else is just you pick and choose what you want to get that confluence that you said.
Exactly, exactly. And maybe in one of these episodes, we can really, 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 like really dig deep into. But then maybe we'll do that somewhere else. And we've done this in the community, like in Discord and whatnot. We've talked about like the algo specifically, and all the different things. And maybe in one of these episodes, we can really just focus on like, like really breaking down everything in the sense, Rob.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
breaking
but
down, yeah, like just a few things like this, but you know what I mean.
yeah, just
So
the kernel alone, just that new machine
exactly.
learning kernel
Yeah,
with an INEMA that a lot of people are just trading with that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And we can, and that's another thing. That's another thing. An indicator doesn't lie. Like you just look left and you back test it.
yeah,
Every time you see this little circle, the red circle, what is it doing? Drop. Look at the red green. Up. Even this one, it was a little drop, but it was still. These are 4 hour candles.
yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
You know, you still got a couple of up, and then if you get, but this one even has confluence. You got the it was a high the highest high. It was a pivot high. Then it came down really low. It created almost it also left a fair value gap there. That's why it's blank. and it just came down and never went back above the kernel, never closed back above the kernel of the 90 MA. Kernel stood red all the way down. See?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you could test it. You just looking at it, you're back testing it. You know what I mean? And like you
Yep.
said, yeah, we can go into it. And I have a lot of things turned on just because I turned it on now real quick. But all these things, you turn off and you make it cleaner. You make it, you just, that white is the VWAP, which I usually put it. I I um I
And
anchor it to the monthly, and then it's not gonna like be right in the middle. So there's a
mhm,
lot of things you can do, and
exactly.
but
It's
definitely, yeah.
yeah, and so like what Rob, Rob is saying, this is leave it on for a sec, Rob,
Yeah,
and then go slightly to the left, just by the reason we like technical analysis, just by Rob going to the left hand side, right? Again, you can keep it really simple. Like, you can use very simple indicators and whatnot. This is like a top tier indicator, and we will, but so just by looking to the left, just by looking at, I'll say green because green really stands out, right? If I look at those green little bubbles on the chart, right? Every time we get a green bubble, like let's say, like speaking of stats, right? If I think of, and again, these are 4 hour candles, so that's a long, long, long time of like having green bubbles and having to play with them, right? If I look at these green bubbles on, again, it has to depend on like what type of trader you are, right? If I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to take a position, right? So I'm doing technical analysis, I see that there's a bit of support here, I'm waiting for confirmation for my technical analysis, I'm waiting for one of these bubbles to cross over. Every time you get a green bubble, right, there's a really, really high chance that you go for a massive rally, right? When you get a red bubble, there's a good chance you get a nice proper sell off, right? And you can see it happening over and over and over and over again, right? So again, and that's really where like technical analysis comes in, right? You need these tools. Well, unless these tools are really beneficial to you in terms of like guiding you, right, in making those decisions, right? And that's why we enjoy technical analysis,
right.
right?
And actually, you just brought a point that, like, when you look at this is not drawing this. This is based on math. It's based on technical analysis.
Yeah.
So this is actually this is doing the technical analysis for you. You see what I'm saying? So that's why, like, technical analysis is still there. It's just doing it for you. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? So it's like I said, when I created this, it was like, okay, I have all these indicators on, and it makes sense to me because I know what I see, that every time that the RSI is over 50 or the stochastic is over 50 or they're both lined up together, the price keeps moving up. And I'm using it. I said, you know what? I'm going back to TradingView because I know how to develop, and I'm gonna do my own thing because I'm only gonna trust one that I do. I'm not gonna because I can see what I it's my logic. It's what I want to see. So that's why I went back to TradingView, and I started trading through the chart and I went to TradeStation because I could trade from the chart
Mhm.
on TradingView because I was doing all this other stuff over there and it was so much to look at. And then here, when I said I'm going to create something for myself that I know that I know that most of the time it works when I do it. So I'm going to just make it more simpler for myself. And then little by little, we update it. It keeps going. We get newer strategies that we find, newer things that are coming out, and we're realizing that works, and we just add it for other traders that want to use it. And they could turn off everything else. They could turn off VWAP. They could turn off the kernel. They could turn off all these things. You know what I mean? Or they could just leave on VWAP and just trade off the VWAP. There's so many ways to do it. So like you said, but it's all based on technical analysis. So when you see me, if you see the coding, all the coding is doing is technical analysis. When the close is above this, do that, or let me know of this. When calculate the volume, calculate the RSI, calculate this, where is it at, blah blah blah, and then let me know. You see what I'm saying? So it's all based on technical analysis.
Yeah. Yeah, Rob and I have these conversations, and like we have to like consciously want to like end the podcast, otherwise it will go on forever. Because
Forever.
again,
Yeah.
this is something that like we enjoy, especially the technical part, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we enjoy, right? So when it comes to the market, so Rob, maybe the last question for you is somebody that's just brand new to the market, right? They're maybe struggling, maybe not struggling. It really doesn't matter, right? So what would it be? What would be your advice for them from like a technical point of view? Like if they're trying to learn technical analysis, they're brand new, they need a little bit of like just guidance. What would you like? What's a direction you would point them in? Would it be like a specific? What would you tell them? It's a
I,
kind of a.
market structure,
Mhm.
because that's where you're gonna get your teaching on higher highs. What's a lower low? Why, what is it doing there? What's a break of structure? What's a change of character? That's where you start. Then you get technical with it, and you have your double bottoms, and you have your you know I would say that learn like technical analysis, the candlestick patterns. That's another thing we haven't even talked about. Jesus, the candlestick patterns. You know what I mean? What the candlesticks are doing, and there's others. There's Renko charts. There's so many that exist. But like just quick example here. Candles are moving down. This doji candle usually is whoever's learning technical candlestick patterns. They know that doji candles are usually reversal patterns, reversal candles. And what did it do? It actually reversed. You see? So
Mhm.
it starts getting smaller, smaller. Then we get a redder one because it closed lower. Now we got the. So just looking at, that's why people can trade sometimes just looking at the candles in a way. You know what I mean? If there's enough volatility because it's moving quicker, they can probably do it. You know what I mean? Um, so definitely, like I would say that I would say learn technical analysis by learning market structure and candlestick patterns, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I think we're really got find a place where you're gonna feel like it's scary to say this because not everybody knows who Hot Trades is or what we do, and they might go somewhere else, and we're fine. If you find a place that works for you, great. But like I know that there's been so many groups out there also that they just give signals and nothing happens and they lose, or they're actually pumping. They're telling people to sell because they're buying, and they're squeezing. And so many things that's being done. But I would say find a group that you feel comfortable with to learn from and feel and sim trade, paper trade. Do not trade with real money, please. Like we say that so many times. I know you might find someone in you're with hot trades and you see these ballers like I just made 1,000, I just made this, I just made that, great, but they've been doing it for a while. They have a they know how to mitigate their risk. There's so many things, right? Some of them have many years of trading, and they trade the same thing always the same way, and they're always most of the time they win a lot more than they lose. So it gets tempting, right, to want to do it, to want to get in quick. But this is not trading is not get rich quick. It's not. People think it is, but it's not. It's you have to have a lot of you got to study, 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 and you never end. I mean, I never stop studying. I always want to learn new things, and I'm always doing that. There's other people that they want it easier, but they're gonna realize they're gonna be losing more times than none.
Yep.
So I would say study a lot, paper trade, practice, get consistent in the paper trading, and then if you could find a nice group that can teach you, not give you signals, not tell you buy here, sell there, or does it teach you actually, give you the and or people that you can actually find that are in the same place as you, that you can learn from, then I would say that, because that's what happened with me. I was all over the place, like
Yep.
videos and YouTubes, and I would get into this Discord and pay this for 3 months, and then realize, then I'll go to another one, and then I was doing so much, you know what I mean, and then there wasn't even Discord, and I didn't even know what Discord was before anyway, but like it was so much like you know it, it's so much noise, and that you have to find some place where you feel comfortable that is going to teach you,
Yep.
because it's like I think there was someone that said, I don't remember, but they said, what, like, I'm not going, it's kind of like what was it, I can have you copy trade me, right, but you're not
Mhm.
learning anything, but I can teach you how to trade so you
Yep.
can make the money, on your own. And that's endless. I'll disappear tomorrow, but you're gonna continue making that money, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Because you learned it, you don't need to be copying anyone. You're gonna learn I'll teach you how to make money so you can continue to make money the rest of your life. So
Mhm. Yep.
yeah, I would say that. It's a
Okay.
long answer, but sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. And like honestly, like all of it is needed though, right? So I think people want it to be like really, really, really simple, but it's not that simple. Especially if you want to do it consistently for a long time, like it's not that simple, right? So it has to be some level of like, like education behind it, some level of like, okay, this is my strategy. This is what I can consistently win with, right?
Right.
You have
That's
to
your
like,
edge. That's
yeah,
called the edge. That's your
your
edge.
edge. Yeah, there
You
you
have to
go.
find your edge. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and again, like that's what, like that's what we focus on in this community, right? So, trying to help you find your edge, and it's different for everybody.
It
All right.
is.
So, hopefully, this episode helped you out. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. If you have a favorite indicator, let us know in the comments as well. And yeah, Rob.
Yeah. No. Thanks for joining, and yeah. Until next time.
Until next time, guys. Bye, all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.